So here we have our tiny little Sericopelma sazimai, which is the sazimai tarantula, which we picked up in the raffle at Seas at the start of this year. It's grown on nicely, as you can see, just there on the left hand side, but it definitely needs to come out of here. I'm not a fan of this pot. This lid just keeps clicking open and shut, so we're going to move out of here into one of these. These, if you've not seen these before, I have shown them on the channel. These are just Tesco's hard plastic tubs. They're really good because the lid is really firm on there, but also stackable and you can see through the lids. So really nice clear plastic. I think these are about like $1.99 or something like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to get some substrate in there and move this little dude across. Okay, so with these tarantulas, they do like it a little bit humid. So what we're going to do is give it a nice moisture holding substrate, bit of dirt in there, nice and simple. And probably mix a tiny little bit, something like vermiculite in there to hold the moisture. And then on top of that what we'll do is we will chuck in a nice little bit of sphagnum moss to mix that around with effectively, so that you get the moisture in there but with no mould. Won't compress this too much, give it somewhere to dig. These do like to dig. My one stays out quite a bit, but it has dug around in its burrows a little bit. Just give it that nice big lump there. Always an arm in the way of the camera, isn't there? Always an arm. So just give this a mix around. Yeah, vermiculite's pretty good at holding the thing. This obviously is still tiny spider, so I'm not going to worry too much about super deep substrate. We'll give it sort of like probably about to the top of where that finger is. Because if they want to burrow and start digging up all the soil will obviously come to the top and leave the burrows. And what ends up happening is, I'll show you with my gigas, you end up with a situation like this, where the substrate is all the way to the very top, because I didn't really give much room for the actual spider. We'll show you this setup in here. Like, it's another one of these same tubs, and as you can see, substrate on the gigas comes right to the very top of the setup. So even though that one's quite okay, because you know it stays in there nice moisture dependent, there's not much room in there, it's pretty happy. But with the sazimai, I don't want to have that same situation where I can't get to it, because if it sits on top of the substrate and I open it up and the substrate's that deep, the first thing it'll do is bolt straight out. So we don't want that. We want a spider that will stay inside its enclosure, be quite happy with the lid to be taken off, and decide not to run like Usain into the middle of nowhere. So we'll give it that, put that in there, get some sphagnum moss, which we will distribute around. I've got these long straggly bits. Have all this up one side. Helps retain the moisture a little bit. Do that down one side, and then we'll put the cork bark over in this corner here. Give it a starter burrow. Something like that. Move that sphagnum over there onto that. Something like that. Looks pretty good. One thing we will make sure of is that it's got a water bowl. So we'll just give this a clean. Always give your spiders access to water if you can, and it shouldn't really be a case of if you can, you should always be able to do it. I know vials and stuff like that are a little bit more difficult, but you can buy tattoo pots that are absolutely tiny. They'll always allow access, and if you can't get that in there, then at least make sure you've got a syringe available to put water in with the spiders. Next up, nice little bit of leaf litter. Just again, leaf litter, while it looks nice, it also does help hold a bit of moisture in, even if it's just surface cover for the soil. But yeah, I think that'll do. Now all we've got to do is move the sazimai into here. Now, whilst we may not be going into Rehouse Central, we will be putting it in a box. And what we'll do is adjust this camera, and we should be good to move the spider in now. Spider at the moment is down just here underneath this water bowl. So we'll take that out, take its hide out, try and encourage the spider across. Come on, dude. Get a brush. It's buried itself now. Here we go. Real chunky butt on this one. Come on. Into its new home. Lovely spider, nice and easy rehouse. Right. Next on the list we have a Sericopelma angustum, the Costa Rican red, and a Davus pentaloris, the Guatemalan tiger rump. This is the fourth one I've got of these, and I need to move this one into a reptizoo so that my OCD calms down, because I've got all the others in one of these. So I'm going to move that one into the reptizoo, and this one we're going to move into the same as we moved the Lasiocyano sazimai into, correct genus name this time, is one of these Tesco's pots. These quite like it, quite high humidity, so this will be fine in here for quite some time. It's not huge, but it definitely needs to come out of here. Right, so we'll start with the Davus, and then we'll move the Sericopelma, but what we'll do is we'll set up both of the enclosures together and then we'll move them. So the simple setups for these, which will just involve some potting compost, a tiny piece of sphagnum moss probably in both of them, and on top of that we will have a bit of cork bark, standard South water bowl, and we're good to go. So we'll just get these set up a little bit with a few scoops of the potting compost, maybe add a little bit of vermiculite into this Sericopelma's one. This one can be quite a burrower. The one that I've got here does like to burrow. So again, same as we did with the other spider, we won't fill this up super deep. We're probably about halfway, so that when it does decide to burrow, any of the substrate it brings up to the top, we're not going to end up with it blocking straight on the top. It's one mistake I found that I did early on with a lot of spiders. You think, oh, they're a burrowing spider, so I'll fill it right up deep with substrate, and then what happens is they burrow and there's nowhere for the soil to go. So you end up opening the lid and having to take a few bits out as you go, as they create their burrows. So let's not do that. With the Davus, they do tend to web up quite heavily. The three that I've got so far they all act a little bit different, but they don't tend to burrow too much. But what we'll do is we'll give it like a deeper area on one side, we'll slope it up, give a bit of a gradient so it can burrow straight in with the cork bark. Let's see what cork bark setups we've got here for these. We've got a couple of pieces. I think we'll give the Sericopelma this bigger part, because knowing what it's like, knowing the fact that it does like to burrow, we'll give it a nice area for it to do that. So we'll just angle this up a little bit like that, not too much. Give it, put maybe a little bit of substrate over the top of the back end of that. Just to hold that in place. See what's going on. I do apologise for doing it off camera. Right. There we go with that one. And then for the Davus, this piece is a little bit more curved. We'll go in sort of like that. Get our finger in underneath. Hold that in place, that's good. Right, a little bit more substrate maybe. Let's see how that goes. We'll leave room for the water bowls, remember. So sphagnum moss, have a little bit around the back end of the hide like we always do. It places to potentially hold the humidity a little bit, but also use it maybe for its webbing. This one can have a fair bit more around the back end. I'm not a huge fan of sphagnum moss. It just seems to dry out very quickly. If any of you have got any hints and tips on how to stop sphagnum moss from going disgustingly dry and yucky almost instantly, let me know. So with the water bowls, it's nice, put them in there and in there. As I always say, give access to water. And then a little bit of leaf litter. Leaf litter sort of for aesthetics, but also the fact that sometimes they will use them for their webbing, and it does hold the humidity a little bit if done right. Obviously when I'm crushing all this up, that's not going to be the case here. This is just for webbing purposes and aesthetics more than anything. And normally what will happen is it all ends up in the water bowl anyway. They like to move all this into the water bowls because spiders. Right, with that done and the desk tidy, I think it's time to move the spiders. So, little tray and the spider, which we have here. This one does like to bolt a little bit, but it's actually quite a nice calm spider most of the time. Bit overkill, but we know what spiders can be like, so right, let's have a look and see if we can see our friend in here. Oh, okay. Right, there's the Davus. This one could be quite simple and a quick rehouse here, while it flicks away at me non-stop. Go on, in you go. Good man. Davus is always a beautiful spider. It's just absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous patterns on its abdomen. Its carapace is just a lovely copper colour, and it's just a lovely spider. It's just an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous looking thing. Who can't appreciate the colorations on that? Let's make sure it's all the way in. Oh, in you go. There we go. Right. No, 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 no. Oh, back out that way. There you go. Typical, as soon as you go to put the lid on. No legs trapped, no legs trapped. There we go. Davus in. Okay, next up, Sericopelma angustum. So let's get this one out of here. This one's a funny spider. Hardly ever see it, and then it spends the evenings upside down on the lid. Definitely needs to come out of here. This enclosure's awful. It's just, look at that, it's just a tub of dirt. Let's see if we can find the spider. Oh, there we go. Just drop the cork bark, shall I, onto the spider's head. There we go. Right, cork bark's out. See if we can move this spider nice and gently like the others. Come on. Let's move you this way. Come on. Let's go nice and gently. And in. Another calm rehouse. Pretty cool. 3 for 3 with the calmness. I know the Davus sort of jumped out, but they do like to wander, so why not? Let's have a look at this one, shall we? Before it disappears down into its burrow, which it will do. As I said, they do like to hide. Very much like Vargans in look a little bit with their abdomen. This one will now have a good few molts inside this enclosure, hopefully, without incident. Right, let's get the lid on this one before it decides to do a runner, shall we? And we're done. And that's the rehousing of the 3 small spiders that I had to do recently. We had the Davus, which beautiful spider. I do like my Davuses, and hence why I've got 4 of them. Slow growers, small spiders. Hopefully I'll have a breeding pair soon. I'm not sure of any of the sex of any of them. They are one of those ones that tend to just destroy their abdomens as soon as they molt, but that's fine. They get cared for regardless of whether they're males or females. I've always said that, but you know, it's just be nice to maybe get a project going on. The Lasiocyano sazimai, the recently regenused spider, really gorgeous. That one was such a good rehouse, so easy to move. They all were, to be fair. But it was just nice to see that one out, because that one tends to stay a little bit buried as well. But I hated that little cup, the little flip top thing, awful. Had that since January this year, and it's molted I think 3 times, so growing nicely. And lastly, the Sericopelma angustum. Those ones are beautiful spiders. They're very, very similar to the Tarantuhalla in regards to their looks, appearance, and this and the other. And I've got a couple of those, and they're absolutely gorgeous. The larger one I have is a female, so if this small one turns out to be male, then that'll be perfect for me. It's not molting very quickly, so possibly isn't, but still, nonetheless, gorgeous spider. Looks very much like a Vargans, like I said, I think in the video. So anyway, if you did enjoy these rehousings, if you do have any comments regarding the sphagnum moss and keeping it so it doesn't go horrible, dry and crusty, let me know. I know, like carpet moss and stuff tends to keep its moisture much nicer than sphagnum. I think the sphagnum really is better off if you mix it in with the substrate itself to hold the moisture in within the substrate, but hey ho, it is what it is. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a like. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so, and hopefully you'll be prepared to come and jump on the lives with us either this week, next week, or whenever we have them. They're a good laugh. We play some games and get the community chatting about spiders, inverts, and the animals. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll catch up with you next week.